What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? How are we doing? John Middlekauff, 3 and Out podcast. Appreciate everyone listening. You guys know what you need to do. Subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share with your friends. We appreciate all you guys who come all the time. So thank you very much. And the game plan today will be big news today with Phillip Rivers, who has clearly passed the test of the workout and will be on the Colts, at least the practice squad to start. Some quick thoughts there, and then we will do a big mailbag at John Middlekauff. At John Middlekauff is the Instagram. Easiest way to get on the show, just fire in those DMs. The winter months come, it gets a little cold. You know, you try to fight off. I felt like I was getting sick a couple days ago. My wife had kind of been sick during Thanksgiving week, and I think I battled it off. It kind of came for a split second on Sunday morning, but we hit that thing with some immunity shakes and vitamin C, and we think we're in the clear. So the game plan today will just be big mailbag, and other than that, you guys know the drill. We had reaction to the Chiefs. They're out of the playoffs Sunday night, unofficially, but it's kind of official. And then Monday night, the Eagles, who lose their third straight game. We have videos on that, so make sure you go check that out. But before we dive into Phillip Rivers, you know I got to tell you about my friends. You know I got to tell you about my partners and their Gametime, because they're the best ticketing app that you've ever seen. I've been a user of Gametime now for, I think, going on 3+ years, and they have the easiest interface you will ever see. So if you want to go to an NFL game, just download that app, and you can find tickets for as low as $100. You can find flash deals. The price you see when you purchase a ticket is the price you pay at checkout. How often on some of these sites do you, purchase a ticket and then you're checking out and they hit you with 7 fees? It's ridiculous. Not a Gametime, because they want you to take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Phillip Rivers. Honestly, this story is one of those that just makes you smile. Partly because it's so ridiculous. Partly because it's Phillip Rivers, who I've been banging the table forever. And I get it, he's got 25 kids and he loves coaching high school ball. Turns out he's running Shane Steichen's offense and they talk every week, which makes sense. Couple just football junkies. But I think we see Drew Brees on television. We see Tom Brady on television. Phillip Rivers would have been a stud. He would have been, a mixture of like a Madden meets Gruden with no swear words. Obviously, Madden didn't cuss. Gruden didn't either on TV, though you could tell he always wanted to. So I've missed Phillip Rivers in my life. There are certain athletes that whenever they come back into your life, like we've been very lucky, right? We've had Charles Barkley in my life, my entire life. When I was a kid, he played in the NBA, and then he immediately went into television, and we just get to consume him, and he makes me smile. It's one of Charles's best characteristics. So many people want to be like him. It's like, bro, he makes you laugh. That is his key. Like, that is what he brings to the table beside just whatever else he's, talking hoops or being a dude, and just he's fun. And John Madden was fun. Phillip Rivers is fun. And I've, back when I was around the Raiders and doing radio, going to all those Charger Raider games at the Coliseum up in Oakland, I've seen him have great games. I've seen him shit the bed and have terrible games. I think the last game ever in the Coliseum was against the Chargers, and Rivers, I think, ended the game on a interception to Charles Woodson. If I could be remembering this incorrectly, but it kind of feels in that world. But I think this also shows one of my first football reactions is this safe? Like, if Phillip Rivers ends up their starting quarterback moving forward, is this safe? He hasn't played in the NFL in years. He obviously was never a great athlete to begin with. He does not have a great arm. And you look at their schedule, they get Seattle this week. At Seattle. Not an ideal landing spot. elite team speed, pass rush, DBs and linebackers that can blitz against an elite defensive coach. That is not an easy landing spot. In theory, because the Niners have a bunch of injuries, that's a little bit easier of a team, but I don't care who plays for the Niners. They have a standard, and they are looking to hit people and hit people hard. The Jags clearly have a good pass rush, and the Texans are probably as ferocious of a defense as they're in the NFL. So 2 of the 4 of these opponents, I mean, big-time defenses. The Jags is pretty good, and the 49ers have one of the best, if not, top 2 or 3 defensive coordinator in the league. Is he safe out there, right? He cannot run. He can't get away. There is just, I don't care what you do in life, and this is where I disagreed with Colin years ago. His whole thing when John Gruden came back, he's like, you can't leave an industry for a decade and come back and know what you're doing. Not in a business that's really competitive, right? You couldn't just leave the media landscape in 2015 and come back in 2025 and have a shot. People would be running circles around you, right? In Wall Street, you couldn't just disappear and come back. There is a massive curve because of the speed in which things change now. Well, football's the same thing. And I get it. Philip would say, hey, it's still, 10 yards to get a first down. The concepts, from the offense haven't necessarily changed. And as they have, I've known about them because I talked to the coach. But, you're not used to the speed. And Colin's whole thing is, John Gruden, this isn't going to work. I was like, I think it will. But I kind of bought the Kool-Aid and I was wrong. It was not working. And I do believe that Rivers, they went through that stretch with when Luck retired of having to get a lot of, older veteran quarterbacks. And multiple of the guys had something in common. They were washed. They were older players whose prime was well behind them. And arm strength-wise, Matt Ryan and Phillip Rivers never had great arms to begin with. But by the time they played for the Colts, their arms were diminishing. Now, Rivers' numbers actually weren't terrible when he was in Indianapolis. But it just shows you how desperate this team is. And sometimes, listen, the old adage is never make big decisions out of desperation. That's all well and good until you don't have a choice and you're in a desperate mode and you have to pull the trigger and make a decision, and that's where they're at. Maybe I didn't fight off the sickness. But I do think when it comes to Indy, I do give them, I do respect the fact that they did this. And they didn't roll out some random Desmond Ridder type, some random guy on a practice squad, right? They're in this predicament because they've had major injuries. Daniel Jones has a broken leg and a torn Achilles. That's not funny, even though it is. Usually when a guy has a major injury, it's I tear my ACL. No, this guy has a broken leg and a torn Achilles on 2 different legs. That's pretty crazy. It's almost like a skiing accident when a guy slams into a rock or something, but I don't know, man. This is a fun story. I hope he plays against the 49ers. That would be really entertaining. I kind of hope he doesn't play against Seattle because I think that could be really ugly. But they might not have a choice. And, I mean, clearly they don't have a choice when they signed him. And I said this on Monday night, and I believe this more. Do you know who's very jealous right now? Do you know how jealous Tom Brady is? Do you know how jealous Peyton Manning is? Do you know how jealous Drew Brees is? Not that they would want to play in a game because they're no dummies. They know, I would get killed. Can't move. But, just getting that call, Philip, you want to come work out for us? That had to get his juices going. It's one last ride, cowboy. I remember the famous story, Tim Flannery, who was Bruce Bochy's third base coach in San Diego. When Bruce Bochy got the job with San Francisco, I think in the late 2000s, he called Tim Flannery, who I think he had fired in San Diego, and said, you know what, cowboy, we got one last ride in us. And they won 3 World Series. And just that call of someone believes in me. I don't care what you do, but as an athlete, if you're Phillip Rivers, you would say, I'm a has-been. I don't have it anymore. But maybe I do. Let's see. Are you sure I don't? Am I sure I don't? We're about to find out. So very, very entertaining story, that's for sure. Okay, let's fire into the mailbag. Today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. The holidays are here and the sports schedule is packed tighter than Santa's gift bag. Week 15 football games, bowl games, NBA and college hoops, hockey, and a whole lot more. You know that new customers can sign up and bet $5 on any game, and if it wins, you'll win $150 in bonus bets on top of your winning? How do you beat that? That's holiday magic, baby. Not sure where to place your first bet? Hard Rock Bet just launched a brand new For You page, making it easy to find all your favorite teams, players, and leagues all in one place. Plus, the Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook app is the only legal sportsbook whenever you're in Florida. It's also live in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, Colorado, and Michigan. More states coming near you. Plus, Hard Rock Bet offers new promos daily. Download the Hard Rock Bet app now and make your first deposit. We will start with Dominic. With the Bills' glaring problem at wide receiver and pass rushers, I'm assuming they will be picking up one this offseason. Which do you think is more vital for the Bills? And who do you think would be the best fit for the Bills, whether that be a trade or a draft in the offseason? The line of scrimmage, if I'm Buffalo, is what I invest in. Like, Shakir was a mid-round pick, right? Cook was not a first-round pick. Kincaid was, but, I mean, he hasn't exactly lit the world on fire. Keon Coleman we drafted really high, and that's been very up and down. I'm investing in linemen. So, I wouldn't get ahead of ourselves. Like, they have an enormous game. I mean, one of the biggest NFL games of the year is this weekend in New England. New England versus Buffalo. Like, I would spend less time worrying about, like, who we're going to get in the draft and in free agency. I mean, who even knows who's going to become available? Older guys get cut. Older guys are on the trade deadline, or, I mean, on the trade block as, coaches get fired. So there's so much unknown on December 9th. But if I'm a Bills fan, the only thing I'm worrying about is, can we beat the Patriots? Like, we're favored in that game, but do I feel great about it? I don't. I mean, I actually kind of think the play is New England, just coming off a bye. That game against Buffalo was in major trouble against Cincinnati. Now, you would say Burrow, is kind of the Bills' killer, but their defense has major, major question marks. And the easiest way to make a defense better is to have awesome defensive linemen. So I would worry less about the offseason and kind of enjoy the ride. Like, you're playing, you've had this run with Josh Allen, who just had a massive game against Cincinnati. Your defense came through with 2 enormous plays that saved the season. Part of saving the season now is like, well, can you take advantage of it? If you lose to the Patriots, it was almost like, well, that kind of was a tease. Ryan, do you think we'll see more larger football programs offer their top prospect college tuition in cash to pay for college, rather than give them cash and a scholarship so they can leverage the limited amounts of scholarships to those who they don't have to give cash to? That way, they can't get around their limited scholarships due to Title IX. Well, if you run Ohio State or Alabama, they get 85 scholarships. So scholarships don't really matter, I would say. Like, they're not being talked about in the conversation of landing a player. Because if I'm going to give a guy $500,000, his tuition of $40,000 a year, I'm also covering his housing costs, his meals with the team. Like, the scholarship is part of the deal. I hear what you're saying. I think the scholarship now is viewed as such an irrelevant piece of the puzzle that it's all about the NIL, and that's just part of the package. I'm pretty sure, I don't know the details of this, but I don't think walk-ons exist anymore. So everyone on the team technically has to be on scholarship, or that's going to happen very soon with the revenue sharing agreement. So I hear what you're saying, but I think the way it's going to work moving forward with the quote-unquote revenue share is not even a possibility. If you're on the team, you're technically a scholarship player, and you're on revenue share. Where do you think C.J. Stroud ranks amongst quarterbacks? He has shown signs of incredible talent, but has been inconsistent since his rookie season. Also, I think the Texans should extend him, but it's tough to say what the price would be. Sometimes, like, you can watch a guy, and I don't even know what his numbers were against the Chiefs, but, like, that was an impressive game. He missed a couple, but he made some big-time plays. And to me, moments like that against a team like that, whose back's against the wall on the road, there's a small limited guys that they can't function in that environment. And he can. Like I know, like you said, he's been up and down the last couple of years because of the offensive line. Obviously, got injured this year. I was impressed. Like to me, he's a guy that you should like. At worst, he could have a Dak Prescott like career. It's on Casario. It's on D'Amico Ryan's to basically build this thing up and protect him. But I was really impressed. Like honestly, I thought he outplayed Patrick or every bit as good as him in that game. So I think CJ's pretty good. Ranking, I don't have him like with Josh or Joe Burrow, but I think he should be a consistent top 10 quarterback for the next 10 years. What have the scouts, NFL personnel said about Mendoza recently? I remember a few months ago, they weren't saying he they were saying he wouldn't even be a top 10 pick. Did he did he need to prove it? He's still the same 6'5 good arm kid who beat Oregon a few months ago. I think when he beat Oregon, the buzz grew. I think when he beat Oregon, that's when it kind of changed a little bit. I think that was I'm real, guys. And that was a moment that I do think he kind of went from interesting prospect to like, this is a real prospect. And then that game against Ohio State was just, some of those throws, some of those plays he made, the toughness he showed getting hit. I would be hard pressed to probably meet many people in the NFL that don't view him as a top. Again, like I understand people going, I wouldn't take him number one overall, but if you take him 12 overall, what the fuck's the difference? If he's the number one quarterback and you need a quarterback, this is the argument from NFL personnel people. It's like you take the guy at 4 that you would take at 12, right? If he's your best option, right? If you're picking between 3 or 4 guys, okay. But if the other quarterbacks are not first round quarterbacks and you need a quarterback, like if someone's going to take him at 7, then you can take him at 2. And my gut, again, things can change. This is a fluid business. Injuries, poor play against better opponents. I would say as of December 9th, I would bet on him being the number one pick in the draft. Like you said, 6'5, 230 pounds, big arm, high character kid, good family, kind of goofy, like Cousins luck, which is actually a plus. You don't have to worry about him screwing around, getting in trouble. I love people being like, yeah, he's kind of goofy. He kind of reminds me of Kirk Cousins. You don't think teams like that? Like his teammates clearly like him. So would I rather have like, kind of goofy dude and just kind of nerdy, like Luck Cousins, or dude that's partying and drinking all the time that also his teammates like? Now, granted, most of these guys in the NFL in 2025 are pretty focused cats, but I think that's working in his favor. Do you think the Giants can easily become the standard in the NFC East? Well, I mean, did my producer Shane write this? I think we got to pump the brakes here a little bit. Standard in the NFC East, they are currently, what's the Giants' record? Oh, they're 2-11. So last year they drafted Abdul Carter 3rd overall. Let's walk before we run. Let's get a real coach. Let's get some better players. Let's keep elevating the guys we got and just try to become an 8-win team. So I do think the standard to be the standard in the NFC East. Listen, Philly's in shambles. They are. What do they have? I guess they only have 1 less loss than the Cowboys, but the Cowboys have 2 less wins. So they would have to lose another game, and even if the Cowboys win out, so if the Cowboys won out 10-6-1, and if the Eagles won out at 8, they'd have 12. They'd have to lose 2 of their last 4. Probably pretty unlikely. I would say the Eagles, they've won the division, 2 of the last 3 years. They're probably going to win it again. I think, listen, we can make fun of them all we want. They're pretty clearly the standard. I have a Jordan Love MVP ticket at 4,000 to 1. So, or I guess plus, 4,000 to 1. So basically 40 to 1. So if you bet $100, you win 4K. If you bet 1,000, you win 40. It'd be a nice hit if you did. Would you cash it out now or let it ride? I can double up with a cash out now. This weekend's kind of tricky because he could throw 3 touchdowns in Denver. They win in Denver. That cash out could double from where you're at. He throws for 140 yards, a couple picks, they lose, kind of comes back to earth. Now, he could vault back up in a week against the Bears, but this is kind of a pivotal point for him, right? So let me bring up the Packers schedule. If we assume he plays well in this game, he could really drive it home the next couple weeks. They go to Chicago, he plays well, they win it. I think he'd be right there. Then the Ravens and Vikings, he can kind of hammer it home toward the end. Plays bad this week, though, I think it would be a little unlikely that he wins it. So if you want to take the logic of you never go broke taking a profit, I think you can't be mad at yourself for cashing out. Now, I don't know your financial situation, but let's just assume you put $100 on him. So you have the opportunity to put $100 into $40,000. The enjoyment and the fun. Now, if you need the $200, I get it. I don't know what you can even get for $200 in 2025, and that buys you like a sandwich, a bag of chips, and like, a quarter tank of gas. But if you need that $200 today, then cash out. But if you don't, and $100 is something that you can handle losing, it makes the last month of the season really fun. I say sometimes, like when I do some of these like $100 parlays, that pay, I don't know, 30 to 1 that would win $3,000. Even if I don't win, the enjoyment I got out of that game was worth $100 of entertainment. Like nothing, what do I get for entertainment anymore? Right? Like when I bet on these PGA Tour events and I get a guy 30 to 1 or 40 to 1 and I put $50 on him, if he's in the mix on Sunday, even if I don't get my money back, that $50 has me glued to the couch in the middle of May when there's nothing else going on. And that entertainment's worth it for me. So I personally, again, assuming it's not a large amount of money or amount of money relative that's going to impact you, I'd let it ride for the enjoyment. I'm a second-gen Lions fan, and I rep hard. Go to games, buy swag. Heck, my friends made me a Lions cake for my 40th. Check my IG, and you'll see the Lions logos everywhere. I was never into college football, but I now, because of college football playoff, have a lot of love to give. But I need a team. I want one I can grow with, but not a current front runner because I hate bandwagoners. I'm open to being open. Any suggestions? Until I read the part about front runners, my first response was just, you're already a Detroit guy, just go with Michigan. Now, Michigan is down a little bit relative to what they were a couple years ago, but they're not going anywhere. That would be my first response. It's an easy carryover. You get Michigan and the Lions, right? It's like a Browns fan, Ohio State, right? Niners fan, Cal fan, Cowboy fan, Texas fan. It's an easy transition. Now, if you want to go a little off the beaten path, I think you still need to root for a team that has a chance to get in the playoffs, right? You wouldn't want to just be a fan of like Mississippi State to be counterculture and have them never make the playoffs. That would suck. So you need more of a team in like the 15 to 30 range. And I think it would be a couple. If you want to bet on the changing landscape of the sport, I think Vanderbilt would be pretty cool. Their head coach, Clark Lee, who had an awesome comment today about like, yeah, we this program plays football. They was asked if they were going to opt out of the bowl game. He's like, no, we're a football program. We play football. I mean, if Pete Bavacqua says one more fucking thing, I'm going to puke in my mouth. But respect to Clark Lee. I think Vanderbilt, the ever-changing world with NIL could really benefit them. I think they just landed the number one quarterback in the country to replace, if it wasn't for Fernando, Diego Pavia would have won the Heisman Trophy. And I'm a sucker for this program. Now, they're going to have a new coach in the next year or two because Whittingham's going to retire. I do think Utah's a team that you can just kind of be proud of. They're usually good on defense. They're usually pound the ball, running it. And if they get a decent quarterback, like they can be a top 10 team. They went 10-2 this year. Their two losses were to Tech and BYU. In Tech, they got worked, but BYU, it was a close game. It was a fun game on, Saturday night. I would go with Vandy or Utah if you want to go like Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Oregon types. I think those two would be cool. And on a yearly basis, Utah, I think you have a better chance on a yearly basis to make the playoffs. Vandy would be fun if it does turn around. Question for the mailbag. What do you think people talk about coaches being good at making halftime adjustments? I heard someone ask Ben Johnson after the game on Sunday about how he managed to make his halftime adjustments, and he responded by saying he didn't make any at all. Is this normal thing or misunderstood? I think where all these guys have always pushed back on that is you're making adjustments based on every play, every series. So just because you come in at half, you have been making adjustments throughout the first and the second quarter, right? The first couple series, you guys are kind of feeling each other out. By the time you've each had 3 or 4 possessions and it's 7 minutes left in the second quarter, like you're on the headset, you're like, hey, let's scrap this. This was a game plan play. Let's take this away. Let's keep running this because clearly they're buying into it and we can hit them with the counter. So I think when like Brady and Peyton Manning and those guys always say like halftime adjustments don't exist because you adjust every single snap. You adjust every single series. So halftime's more about like everyone gather yourself, maybe like a big picture message, and maybe like you could be a little calmer and do specific adjustments that you were already talking about out on the field. But I think a quote unquote adjustment in football, in the NFL, and college is like a fluid thing throughout the game after the first series or two. So I don't think he's acting like they don't adjust. They just don't adjust. Like they don't talk about. They just run the game plan, and they go into halftime and they either throw away the game plan or adjust the game plan. Where I think he would tell you is like it's just a constant thing, start to finish in the game. In theory, give a gift that will endure far beyond the season. When you support Folds of Honor, your generosity creates a lasting impact, providing educational scholarships to the spouses and children of America's fallen and disabled service members and first responders. Donate before the year's end at foldsofhonor.org. Your gift honors their sacrifice. It becomes their legacies, education, career, and future. Your gift builds a better tomorrow. I feel like the conversation around CJ is always he's been a shell of himself since the rookie year. Since I'm a Texans fan, I watch every snap and give my biased opinion. But he's extremely accurate, and the Chiefs game shows he has a lot of playmaking ability. When Caleb Williams has one good half against the Packers, the narrative is, look how talented he is. And the narrative around CJ is, when will we see rookie CJ again? Just curious your thoughts. I think Chiefs game was a pretty big moment for the guy. I think that was impressive. That was like, okay, let's win this division, baby. Let's do it. I have a parlay, a pretty aggressive one, with Houston, with Denver, who's going to do it, with the Packers, who still can do it, with Seattle, which was 5-1, that still can do it, and were those my parlays? I took a screenshot of them. My parlays to win the division was Houston, Denver, Green Bay, Tampa, Seattle. $50 to pay $10K. Also have one I made middle of the season with Denver, New England, Seattle, and Pittsburgh. That's $100 to pay $7K. So we'll see. I'm a Houston Texans fan, and I have Denver, Green Bay, 83-1 with $100 to pay $8,400 to make the Super Bowl. So that's who I'm rooting for right now. That's who I'm rooting for. In Houston, I was dead. We were all dead until we're not. Now, we're going to need Jacksonville to lose a game. And you look at their schedule, they might not. Do you think the college football committee are having nightmares of Tulane and James Madison actually winning? No. I would say they have no. They're not worried. Those teams are both getting their ass kicked in the first round. I'm a Ravens fan, so I need your opinion. We love to put blame on Lamar. We love to put it on the players. We love to blame the coordinators. When are we going to hold John Harbaugh accountable. I know he's a good coach, but we are a very, very poorly coached team, and it starts with him. Like nobody ever calls him out. I feel like we could bring in a Brian Flores or a Clint Kubiak, and they'll turn the team completely around. Plus, that O line of ours is very bad, but he keeps saying they're doing a good job. I mean, it's. I think what drives fans nuts, and I see it because I'm pretty in deep with Niner blogs and stuff following on social media, is when everyone agrees like the O line's terrible or like a couple offensive linemen are bad. I remember everyone thought the 49ers center sucked the last couple years. And then their own line coach said he was like one of their highest graded guys in the league. It's like, are we all idiots? And the answer is sometimes yes, and sometimes like they can be biased. I think they also need to build up their players. They're in the business of like making these guys believe they're actually better than they are. But if John misses the playoffs, it'll get louder. It'll get louder for sure. I think the reason Tomlin's under more, he hasn't won a playoff game in 10 years. John Harbaugh was in the AFC Championship game 2 years ago, hosting it. He's been the number one seed multiple times now the last couple of years. So I think that's why he gets treated a little bit differently. Giants have the number one overall pick currently. If that stands, do you think they trade back and get a haul? I think they would definitely trade out of it. Now, a haul, it depends how many people are bidding for it, but it would, at this point in time, if you're a Giants fan, you might as well just lose out and get the number one pick. Because if Fernando comes out, let's see, right now, if you go to the league standing, they would be one, the Titans being two, which is good for you too. Like you want the Titans to keep losing. So teams like the Raiders, the Browns, the Cardinals, the Jets get in a bidding war. I think the best case scenario, I see with my wife in real estate, you get a couple people that want the house. And that house I was on the market for $1 million. All of a sudden it sells for 1.2. And it just takes two, baby. But if you just get one, luckily there's not just one. And you're just better off at this point losing out, assuming that Fernando is viewed as the number one or Dante Moore. I think the best case scenario for the Giants is only one of those two guys comes out. And so it's just them versus a group of other guys that aren't even viewed as first round picks. So if you want to get the quarterback, you got to come up and get him. If there's multiple guys, then it's like multiple homes on the block. The negotiation power isn't quite the same. I think that's what you got to root for if you're a Giants fan. Only one quote unquote star quarterback comes out. Pretty sure Fernando doesn't have a choice, but what's his eligibility? I don't know why I've just been talking about him like a senior, but so his first year at Cal, he redshirted. I mean, technically he could come back to Indiana. 22 he redshirted, 23 played, 24 obviously he was full-time starter at Cal, and then this year. God, his numbers. He has more touchdowns this year at Indiana, 33, than he did the last 2 years combined as starter at Cal, 20. Now, granted, he started 19 games. He's played 13 this year, but I would say, like I said, I would say Fernando is going to be the top pick in the draft. With Jalen Hurts regressing, it seems like every game, how long until the Eagles move on to Tanner McKee? Clearly, they like McKee, and he's shown some flashes during preseason games. There's one little problem when it comes to Jalen Hurts, and it's called this thing called a contract. Now, I'm not trying to bury him off a weird season in these weird games, but Jalen Hurts is what you would call in the mob a made man. He's basically these next couple years he's going to be on the team. So I would say under no circumstance, even if they lose out and he keeps playing shitty, he's on the team in 2026. He is 100% the quarterback at least next year. Now Philly, they're cutthroat as any organization, and how he proved it with Carson Wentz. Now this guy won you the Super Bowl, right? I mean, he didn't just win the Super Bowl, but he was a starting quarterback. It was easier on the Wentz thing. It's like, well, he didn't even win it. Foles did. I do think he's a little bit of a made man, at least for sure, 26. Especially because what are they going to do this? They're going to get rid of AJ Brown this offseason. So they'll get rid of AJ Brown. They'll probably draft a guy high and kind of give him a new look offense. They'll probably try to improve the offensive line for sure. Actually, they're probably more likely to draft offensive linemen. Well, I guess they could sign them in free agency, but they're expensive, and I don't know how much money they're going to have. Tanner McKee, what year is he in? 3. So he was drafted in 23. So this is his 3rd year in the league. I mean, he'll be on the team next year. Who are the dark horse Super Bowl contenders? I got the Texans and the Niners. Texans case is easy. Defense against mediocre AFC. The Niners case would be having the best coaching staff in the Shanahan era. He's had some great ones, but Kyle finally gave up and decided special teams matter. Sala and Kyle frequently start drives in favorable positions. I do think from a personnel staff or standpoint, it would be really difficult if they're a wild card team to win 3 games with that defense. Their margin for error on offense would be slim to none. They'd have to be the best offense in the playoffs to have a chance to like make a Super Bowl run. Because defensively, like, listen, they play really hard and they're well schemed. They do not have the bodies. Their best pass rusher by a mile is Huff, who is a situational pass rusher that they're having to play a lot more. Who's good pass rusher? I mean, he'd be really good if they had Bosa and Michael Williams. I mean, he'd be good for like a sack a game. But now it's like you just kind of know if you can just kind of double team him, who else is beating you. The 40 what both those two teams have is you'd want no part of either one in a playoff game, and you would want no part of either one in that first round. Because in that first round, let's face it, like you just won your division, unless you're the Bucks or the Panthers. Like if they're the 3 seed and you're the Eagles and you're like 11-6 and you're playing the 49ers who are 12-5, it's like, yeah, they got some issues, but they ain't going to be scared of playing you. And all the pressure is going to be on you, and that crowd will turn on you. If you're the Texans and you're playing, the Patriots and Broncos in some order will probably be 1 and 2, then it'll probably be the Jags or the Texans. I guess it could just be Texans Jags. If you're the Jags, you don't want you'd rather play the Chargers than the Texans in that game, I think. How fucked are the Colts? I heard they're trying to call Phillip Rivers. At what point you might as well try Nikola Jokic to be your quarterback? Where do the Colts go from here? Yeah, man, they're in trouble. I mean, you just find yourself in some of these situations once upon a time where you just have some injuries. I mean, there's a famous story, I think, in like 2002 that Donovan McNabb got hurt and Andy Reid called Troy Aikman. And he was calling games and he thought about it, but he ended up saying no. But sometimes you find yourselves in these situations where you're just completely desperate. And if you were 5-8, you would just sign some dude off the practice squad and you wouldn't even care. But when you're 8-5, you're like, if we can just get to 10-7, we could be in the playoffs. We could still win this division, right? And that's what they're thinking. And the answer is actually you can't. Like, you guys are too close to the sun. My mother could tell you you're screwed. It sucks, but you're screwed. But that's not how you think when you're in a team, when you're in the environment. You can't tell your players that. It just sucks if you're them. I don't really care. I'm rooting for Houston. I have a question with honestly no agenda at all for the bag. If you could to informally poll some of your NFL exec connections, I think that would be wonderful. This guy wants me to grind out here. Start sending some text messages. If this past year's NFL draft was conducted all over again, in which round do most people feel Shedeur would be selected this time around? Sincerely curious. I would say watching him play, he shouldn't have been a 5th rounder 1 to begin with, right? But he did that to himself by saying, do not draft me. All the Ravens and the Eagles, these teams were going to draft him in the 4th round. And he said, no. I think 100% if you redo it, he goes on the 2nd day. Where on the 2nd day? It's hard to get, if I polled these guys, a huge part of the draft is like what's happening leading up to the draft. So if now, he'd just be cool with coming to your team. Yeah, I mean, I think he could go somewhere between like middle of the second round and middle of the third round, depending on your quarterback needs, depending on who your quarterback is. Right, if you have an established starter, it's you got to feel if like the Chiefs, they wouldn't waste a pick, but like you don't have to if you take him in the second round. But that was the whole thing. Shedeur didn't want to go to Lamar Jackson because he would never play, even though ironically he would have because Lamar missed games this year. So he should have gone last year based on the talent, I thought, on the second day. Dylan Gabriel going in the third round is insane. So, historically, we've seen a lot of guys. Russell Wilson went in the third round. Dak Prescott went in the fourth. But part of the reason he fell is he got a DUI right before the draft. Cousins the fourth. Um, Now, it's almost like saying, well, yeah, that home used to cost 400 grand. It costs $1.2 million now. There's quarterback inflation. It's like the Dak Prescotts, the Cousins, those guys would never go that late now. Right? They would go somewhere between pick 20 and 50. That's probably where Shedeur goes. It's like you're an investment banking high finance guy meets cooler version of Mike Mayock. That's quite the fucking compliment. I like that. Question for you though. What was the moment you realized you weren't for the scouting personnel game, and why did you decide to stick it out and stay in the sports media space given all the adversity from the sector and the sport and the media industry? I I got relieved of my duties. My contract ended. It just didn't get extended by the Eagles in 2013 after the draft. So that's like, May 1st. I started doing radio stuff by that summer and into the fall. And when I started doing that, in football, I could love a guy and we could sign him, but it's not like I get a bonus off that. You get like good job and you just move on, right? And part of it was you get in the radio, you're like, God, I'm doing some shows, like we're rating really well, getting a lot of positive feedback. And it kind of hit me that I control my own destiny doing this, right? Like, even at the time, I didn't have a radio show or whatever. I was just going on as a guest. But I remember the boss who had come from ESPN was like, your segments rate really well. And it's like I had control. Now, again, I didn't control the ratings, but luckily people enjoyed listening to me. Part of it, they probably never, I was kind of a unique voice at the time. Um, and I was unique because I was from, I was doing local Bay Area radio. Like I'm from Northern California. So it's like I grew up rooting for these teams. It was a pretty easy landing spot for me in terms of the knowledge of what I was talking about. And I just remember thinking, like, I control my own destiny here. It's almost like when you hear an entrepreneur guy who'd worked at a corporate job and goes, the thing I wanted was no longer, I wanted to control. I wanted to have control of where I went, win or lose. And once I started doing this, I realized, like, as you do it longer, like anything, there are things out of your control. But I control way more of doing this than I did as the scouting world. Right? I mean, a huge part of, I say this all the time. Tim Skipper is, I've been around Andy freaking Reid. He is one of the best coaches I've ever been around. He is big time. And he just took the Cal Poly job. And you see some of these guys that end up at like Auburn or Urban, Ryan Day at Ohio State. It's all about getting hitched with the right guy. Once upon a time, when his career was taking off, he got on with Jim McElwain. Jim McElwain went to Florida. He was Jim McElwain's assistant head coach at Florida. They were making the SEC championship game, and they got fired. I mean, he was, if it had gone a little bit better, maybe he's an SEC head coach. So much stuff as coaching or scouting. There are probably great scouts on the Cleveland Browns, on the Raiders, on wherever. But in this business, I'm essentially a salesman for myself. I'm selling John Middlekauff's the product. It's impossible to get any easier than go, well, do I believe in what I'm selling? I'm literally selling my own body, not technically my body, unless for the right price, but just like me. And it hit me kind of early on doing that I was like, God, I'm pretty good at this. And I remember the feedback, it really kind of clicked in. They're like, God, I'm kind of in the driver's seat. I'm no longer in the back seat, right? You see with the Eagles, like, guy gets fired. All of a sudden, Chip comes in, a bunch of new people that you don't really know. And it's like, where are you in? Are you out? It's like if I do a good job doing this, and over the years, I feel like I've got a pretty good idea of what I'm doing. Like I'm in complete control of what happens to you know for the consumer to enjoy it or not, right? And then you just get with the right people, the right infrastructure, the sales, the financial aspect, the distribution aspect. Obviously, you got to be smart about that, and I've been lucky. The relationship with Colin is definitely in this career of mine is the most important thing that's ever happened to me. Well, I would say that's twofold. The guy that officiated my wedding, Guy Haberman, got me into the business in in the Bay Area. Had me on. He's the reason that it took off. Then we had a radio show and we did a podcast. Without that starting point, who knows? Who knows? I mean, that was it. All got started there, and that was integral. It doesn't exist without me getting my foot in the door, and I got my foot in the door because of him. And then we had a radio show that did well, but then that thing got canceled when we started pissing people off. Well, somehow I pissed people off, even though he was kind of saying the same things too. But he's probably a little nicer about it, and the Raiders held it against me more. But it is what it is, all in good fun. Well, not really at the time. I was pissed, but so were they. Doing the one thing in the radio business or any of I see this with ESPN where the analysts they love to push back like the SEC is not telling us what to say. When you're in business with someone, regardless at that level, no different with radio and business with the Yankees or the Lakers, even if you're paying the Yankees or the Lakers to have their product, what they say really matters because they're really important to your business model. And there are 100% pressures of they in this line of work they always say don't get personal. Well, that's kind of entertaining to do that. You know. Now, if you're just getting personal 24/7 365 and you don't even know the guy, it's like you're kind of a douche. Like I often say like if I don't know the guy, this isn't personal. I don't know the human. But I can also I don't have to know you to not like you or think you stink, right? But you got to be very careful when you're in business. And I saw it forever with the big radio station in the Bay Area. They had the KNBR, they had the San Francisco Giants. And the Giants got they get very sensitive about what you say. It's like, guys, you've lost 20 of the last 25 games. What am I supposed to do? Throw you a fucking party? Send you guys cookies? I mean, it's a very difficult business to do if you are connected with leagues. Because what if you truly believe you're sitting up there like, I don't think Alabama's that good. Like, what if you believe that? But you're in business with the SEC. Like, they're not going to want you to say that. It's like, yeah, I think SEC, I think Bama sucks. I don't think Bama's a top 15 team right now. I don't know if you're hearing many people say that, but there has to be some people that believe that, right? 100%. No different at Fox. Like they take care of the Big Ten. You never hear any negative Ryan Day stuff. It's like it's why they kind of get very sensitive with Portnoy. Now Portnoy, I'd argue. I mean, he's like even my wife says, God, he's always talking shit about Ohio State. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of his thing. But I do get if you're Fox, like Ohio State, if they had to choose the entire Big Ten, right, all the teams, not Ohio State, or just Ohio State and lose all the teams, they would choose Ohio State. That's how powerful that brand is. And Michigan and Oregon and USC are huge. But Ohio State is that powerful. They're essentially like a big NFL team. And, you just got to be careful what you say. Now, I do believe that, Klatt likes these guys and stuff, but, I've heard him be really negative on the SEC. Like, he's not, he wouldn't throw those type flames at Lincoln Riley. He wouldn't throw those type flames at, Matt Rule. It's just part of the thing. And one thing I realized in getting in the podcast business, like, I can say whatever I want about teams. Again, I'm just saying what I think anyway. If we had a partnership with, Major League Baseball and Rob Manfred, we would. It would be hard, right? And I don't even talk baseball, but my point is, you just wouldn't just be shitting on them constantly. They would be pissed. That happened with ESPN. That was the issue at the end with ESPN of like, you guys don't even talk about us, and when you do, it's like negative. So I think these things get very complicated, and it's easiest to just be kind of independent and say whatever you want because it's easy to just be authentic, and that's what resonates with the most people. I don't know why that was so long winded and why I talked about it for so long, but I appreciate you guys listening to my TED talk. Adios.